Hello, friends. In today's session, we'll talk about some of the basic to advanced level interview questions of CSAP Selenium and Specflow. So let's get started. We'll first talk about CSAP Selenium. First question is how to create a new instance for a WebDriver in C Sharp. So it should be like the syntax is very much similar to Java. Like you just put I in front of WebDriver. Should be I WebDriver driver is for new Chrome driver. That's on the way you instantiate Chrome driver in the case of C Sharp Selenium. Next question: how do you navigate to a URL using Selenium in C Sharp? So the answer is driver.navigate. Go to URL, then the name of the website. How do you find an element by its ID using C Sharp Selenium? So it should be like I web element. Element is called driver.find element by ID, then element ID. So here only difference is you put a prefix of I. So the difference is only in the language binding compared to Java. How do you click on an element using Selenium in C Sharp? So it should be element.click method. How do you send text to an input field using Selenium in C Sharp? So element.send keys. Then you put the text. How do you handle multiple windows in Selenium WebDriver using C Sharp? So you should use like driver.switch to window. Then you can just mention driver.window handles last to switch to the latest window. So let's move to the next set of questions. How do you handle drop-downs in Selenium WebDriver using C Sharp? So by using the select element class. So it should be select element select. It's called to new select element, then select by text. Okay, how do you switch to an iframe using Selenium using C Sharp? And driver.switch to frame and then put frame name. How do you switch back to the main content of an iframe using Selenium in C Sharp? So driver.switch to default content. How do you handle alerts and pop-ups in Selenium using C Sharp? I alert is equal to new switch to alert. Then you put alert.accept. So here we are creating an alert object, and then we are calling accept method for accepting an alert, or dismiss method or dismissing an alert. How do you verify an element if an element is enabled using Selenium and C Sharp? So you just create a boolean of variable and then mention element.enabled. How do you verify if an element is selected using Selenium and C Sharp? Then you should use selected method. Okay. And how do you handle cookies in Selenium WebDriver using C Sharp? You should mention like first create the driver instance, like WebDriver, I WebDriver driver is new Chrome driver. Then use the driver object. Then call manage cookies, add cookie, new cookie, key and value. Okay. So that's the way you basically handle cookies. Let's move to the next. Like how do you take screenshot in Selenium WebDriver using C Sharp? So you just use like I text screenshot interface and then basically use get screenshot method and then save as file screenshot.png. So that's the normal syntax. So make sure you cast the driver object with I text screenshot. What is the purpose of actions class in Selenium? The actions class is used for performing complex user interactions like drag and drop, click and hold, and multiple actions in the sequence. How to perform a drag and drop operations in Selenium using C Sharp? So first create an action object using actions class and then use drag and drop method. So basically use a source element and target element dot perform. How do you perform a double click operation in Selenium using C Sharp? Similarly, you just create actions object and then use double click method, then dot perform. How do you get the text of an element using in Selenium using C Sharp? So you just use element dot text. How do you verify if an element is displayed on the page using Selenium in C Sharp? So you just use displayed method, create a Boolean object. Next is how do you verify if an element is enabled using Selenium in C Sharp? So just use enabled method. Similarly, for selection for selected, we just need to use selected method. How do you handle a file upload in Selenium WebDrive using C Sharp? So this is normally done by sending a file path to the input element using element.sendKeys file path. How do you perform right click in Selenium WebDriver using C Sharp? So just create an actions object, actions class object, and then use something called as context click element dot perform. So here you just give the web element. How to perform keyboard actions in Selenium WebDriver using C Sharp. So by using actions class, example action dot send keys dot enter dot perform. How do you scroll a page using Selenium WebDriver in C Sharp? So here we can do it by using JavaScript executor. So we just need to put an I in front of JavaScript executor for in case of C Sharp Selenium. And since this is the interface, we need to typecast with the with driver, and then we can use execute script method, and then Windows scroll by method dot the pointer like 0 to 250 point you can just mention. So then it will scroll to the page. And next is how do you maximize the browser window using Selenium WebDriver in C Sharp? So we can do it by using driver.manage.window.maximize. Okay. Now let's move to Specflow. Specflow is basically is an open source framework for behavior driven development that allows user to write executable specifications using Gherkin's language. So it is a concept derived from BDD. BDD is behavior driven development, and it's a basically a software development approach that encourages collaboration between developers, QA, and non-technical or business participants to define requirements in a natural language. Okay. So before we go to hooks, like what the main components of Specflow, we should use something like feature files. So it is similar to like Java and Cucumber. Specflow is a like a tool that is it's open source framework for C Sharp, not .NET. Okay, so here the main components will be feature files, step definitions, and test runners. Now, before we go like to the hooks, what is a Gherkin? Gherkin is a business readable domain specific language for describing software behaviors in a structured manner using keywords like given, when, then, and but. And normally there is a this we need to create a feature file in Specflow. So it will be a dot feature extension, and that will contain scenarios written in Gherkin. Okay. Now normally how you write scenario outline in Specflow. Scenario outline basically allows the same scenario and in different in multiple times in with different sets of data. So you will first write scenario outline, for example adding two numbers, and then we can just mention like given I have entered um, into the calculator, then I have entered number into the calculator. When I press add, then the result should be on the screen. So it's like a step-by-step process, like given, when, then, and. So that's how we write scenarios in scenario dot feature. And so now, like, what are hooks in Specflow? Hooks are methods basically annotated with before, after, before scenario and after scenario attributes that run before and after features, after scenarios, or feature execution. So these are methods that will always run before and after feature execution. How do you parameterize steps in Specflow? The steps can be parameterized by placing placeholders in gherkin steps and passing arguments to step definition methods. And how do you share data with between steps in Specflow? So it is done through context injection or scenario context objects, okay, which can be used to share data between the steps. What is context injection in Specflow? This is very commonly asked interview question. A context injection is a feature of Specflow that automatically injects dependencies like WebDriver instance into step definition classes. Okay. Next question is like, how do you normally create a Specflow framework for automation using Selenium WebDriver? So we normally use like a new a Visual Studio Community, which is a free version, and if it's paid, then you can use Ultimate. Then we can create a class library like .NET Core or Core project and or an NUnit project. So NUnit is basically a unitistic framework for .NET or C Sharp. So once you created the NUnit project, you can use NuGet. You can basically install the packages for Specflow. That is, you can do it through NuGet package manager. Okay, so you can right click on the solution explorer and select manage NuGet package. Okay, so once you click on manage NuGet package, you will get a screen where you will basically search for these packages, and once you find these, you can just install. Next step will be once all the configurations are done, then next step is like add a new feature file. So to adding a new feature file, you can basically right click on your project and then click on add the new item and choose a specific Specflow feature file and name it. Let's say login.feature. Then in that you can write Gherkin scenarios. So as I mentioned, Gherkin scenarios will be like based on context, like given, when, then format. So you can write, let's say, a login function that you can write, and then next is create step definition. The definition classes. For example, you can right click on your project and add new item and choose to name it. For example, login steps.cs. Okay, and in the step definition file, you can basically use like all your implementation steps for Selenium WebDriver. Let's say you want to instantiate Chrome driver, you can mention that in step definition file, and you can also use all the Selenium driver instantiating and all the code you can mention in the step file. Okay, and in the step file, we're normally using like binding annotation because that will bind with the feature file. Okay, so binding annotation we need to use. Then next step is how to run like the project. So first we have to build the project, ensure there is no build errors. Then for running the project, we can open the test explorer in Visual Studio, that is on the test drop down, and then we can run the project. So these are the steps for running the step flow. So here the main points will be like maintain a modularity. Let's say we should keep our page objects, step definitions, and utilities modular for each maintenance. And reusability, while reusable methods in page objects to reduce code duplication. Configuration, we should manage like configurations. Let's say URL credential using a configuration file, and logging and reporting, like integrating logging and reporting framework for better insights and test execution. And continuous integration, like setting up CI/CD pipelines to run test automatically. So these are some of the steps to configure the Specflow framework, and which is the steps are very much similar to Cucumber or other BTD framework tools like Cucumber, which is properly known in Java. And Next slide. So friends, I hope this session was useful. Thank you very much.